TIL that after a man named Robert McCartney was murdered in a bar fight in Northern Ireland in 2005, all 71 potential witnesses claimed to have been in the bar's bathroom at the time, leading the 4x3 space to be nicknamed the TARDIS. Crazy that not one of the 71 switched their story? It sounds an awful lot like the murder of Jessica Lal in Delhi, India. She was shot at point blank in a crowded party by a politician's son because she refused to serve him a drink after the bar had closed, and they were out of alcohol. An awful lot of people claimed they were on the roof when it happened. A total of 32 witnesses turned hostile in the case. The murderer was acquitted, then retried, and convicted after a huge public outcry and media coverage. https://m Times of India com/city/delhi/no one killed Jessica/article show/14233993, CMS. There is Ken McElroy. He was shot several times in the middle of town with at least 46 witnesses. Only his wife claimed to know who shot him. No charges were ever brought. He was a complete piece of shit that everyone was afraid of. He terrorized the town until they came together against him. https://en m Wikipedia org/wiki/Ken_McElroy. Fuck NSFW. There should be a rabbit hole tag. Goddamn. The fight arose when his friend, Brendan Devine, was accused of making an insulting gesture or comment to a woman in the Co-Social Club. https://en Wikipedia org/wiki/social_club. When Devine refused to accept this or apologize, a brawl began. McCartney, who was attempting to defend Devine, was attacked with a broken bottle and then dragged into Verner Street, beaten with metal bars and stabbed. \1 https://en Wikipedia org/wiki/murder_of_Robert_McCartney #site_note_suntrib1 * Devine also suffered a knife attack, but survived. The throats of both men had been cut and McCartney's wounds included the loss of an eye and a large blade wound running from his chest to his stomach. Devine was hospitalized under armed protection. This murderous thug took white knighting really seriously. I think I'd be a pretty brave fellow if my life or my family was directly and imminently threatened. But if I witnessed a terrorist group straight up murdering somebody, and not in like a war zone or a faraway country but in the bar down the street, I'm not sure I'd be brave enough to publicly testify to that, not without some credible protection from the retaliation of said terrorist group. A bathroom should have been nicknamed the TARDIS. Probably will get buried, but this is a profile of the man allegedly responsible for the murder. https://m Independent, ie/Irish News /profile of Gerard Jock Davison, the IRA boss who ordered the brutal killing of Robert McCartney 311977070. HTML. I went to school with Robert McCartney and grew up in the area where this all happened. Robert McCartney was not an asshole. He was a good lad that had a good family and principles, stood up for them one night and a couple of scumbags killed him for it, then made sure to look after themselves because of the shitstorm that came after. Which they didn't expect. That's the story here. As someone from NI, you have to understand that things are changing. The paramilitaries do exist, but they are involved a lot more now with the drugs and other illegal activities and have divided into new subgroups a lot or feuds amongst themselves. However, even now you'd be very brave to speak out as a witness against a paramilitary member if you did witness a crime, as odd are you'd be next. Any recent killings have mostly been amongst fellow members, however they've still tried to plant bombs etc. under police cars, and the last one I remember making a big deal was a few years ago of Ronan Kerr, who was a Catholic and had recently joined the police. Thankfully it got a lot of backlash. Feel free to come visit, as you'll not see this in the day-to-day Belfast as it's becoming more touristy every year. Anyone who says it's dangerous or can feel tension is talking out of their arse. You'd sooner be robbed or beaten in a big European city than here. Crazy that this happened in a first world country with presumably normal people only 15 years ago. As one of the very few posters in this thread who's actually from Belfast, Northern Ireland, I can say that some of the political takes here are astoundingly bad. I still to this day know barely anything of the Troubles. I got torn to shreds for asking about it on Reddit once. I lived a few streets away from Robert when this happened. He was soon to move away from Short Strand to give his kids a better life. His poor wife and sisters were chased out of the area by the murderer's relatives. Disgusting what happened and lead to lots of IRA funding being cut from overseas members when they discovered that the IRA they knew were nothing but bullies and drug dealers. Since the IRA was fractured in the area, crime has increased and so many young adults are now addicted to heroin, as there are no paramilitaries keeping the peace and controlling the drugs. Short Strand never recovered from what happened to Robert. RIP. Not surprised that no one was ever sentenced. Reminds me of a documentary the BBC made last year about the Glennaw gang, who were a loyalist group who carried out killings of innocent Catholics in the 70s. It's widely believed the gang were working with the British forces/intelligence. They were given access to weapons as well as names and addresses of those they had to kill. They carried out over 70 murders. The BBC tracked one guy who was linked directly to 30 of them. He had never been arrested or sentenced. He was just living life as a free man working in a church. Although these killings took place 50 years ago, the fact these types of people were never sentenced and the police in 2020 are doing very little about it, one of the reasons why the police service have such low support from the Catholic community. As an American that stayed in Belfast for 2 weeks, the people and history there are amazing. I avoided one building that was painted black since I thought it was an IRA club. It turns out it was a football club/pub. I enjoyed some Guinnesses and harps with some of the nicest folks I have ever met. One guy was a retired cop. He reminded me a lot of the dad from 28 Days Later. An elderly gentleman gave me a personal tour of the city. He showed me where military checkpoints used to be, where bombings had gone off and people he knew had been killed. It is a small city, but as a visitor, the people could not have been nicer. I found them to be more small town and friendlier than folks in Dublin. I didn't see not in Kappa. I don't get it. What does TARDIS abbreviate? The very few times I get to see my country on here is never for good things. Good God, we have similar shit like this in Iraq, people getting killed by political parties and the police can't do shit. Gotta love a good Doctor Who reference. I would have gone for a piss instead of having a mediated agreement. https://www. irishtimes.com/culture/film/why a dairy mother took her son to be kneecapped. 1. This thread has made me wonder why the murder of Kitty Genovese has stayed in the public conscious for so long when there are so many examples of the same thing that seem to actually be true. You didn't want to be a witness during the Troubles, so while absurd, it's totally understandable. Can you imagine how much of an asshole you'd have to be for 71 people to pretend they didn't see you get brutally murdered? Edit * my b. I do realize this was an actually horrific event that involved mass threatening by a terrorist organization. This was the first thought that popped into my head. Though it was a bad one. Was he a dude that the entire town hated? I think I'd be a pretty brave fellow if my life or my family was directly and imminently threatened. But if I witnessed a terrorist group straight up murdering somebody, and not in like a war zone or a faraway country but in the bar down the street, I'm not sure I'd be brave enough to publicly testify to that, not without some credible protection from the retaliation of said terrorist group. OL mate wasn't murdered in the bathroom by any chance, was he? Couldn't make this shit up if you tried.